What's up, guys? Welcome to another session with Mr. Abdul Wahab. Today we're going to be working on the third practice exam on the first passage of the third practice exam from the College Board website. And before I begin, I just want to give an overview again of the whole SAT exam. As you can see, of course, you've got 65 minutes to go through 5 passages or 5 parts and to answer 52 questions. On each passage, you have 10 or 11 questions. So that leaves you basically with 13 minutes to work on each part, 5 parts again, and to answer what the question is related to that part. So you don't really have a lot of time, so you need to practice really hard to get comfortable with these sorts of passages, the science passages, the literature passages, and so on, and to know how the questions are phrased so that this would become more familiar to you and so easier. So as usual, we begin with the small intro at the beginning. So this passage is adapted from Saki, the Shards-Miller-Clune method, originally published in 1911. So this was published nearly a century ago. And Saki is one of the best short story writers ever. So this is going to be quite interesting. He uses symbolism quite a lot and irony. So Lady Carlotta, so this is one character in the passage, stepped out onto the platform of the small wayside station and took a turn or two up and down its uninteresting length to kill time till the train should be pleased to proceed on its way. Then, in the roadway beyond, she saw a horse struggling with a more than ample load. So she stepped out onto the platform. She's standing on the platform of a station and she's waiting for the train to leave. And then she saw a horse struggling with a more than ample load. That's basically a heavy load. Okay, so and a carter of the sort that seems to bear a sullen hatred against the animal that helps him to earn a living. Okay, so of course the carter is basically the owner. Now Lady Carlotta promptly betook her to the roadway, so she went to the roadway and put rather a different complexion on the struggle. So she viewed the struggle of the horse in a different way. Certain of her acquaintances, her friends, were wont to give her plentiful admonition, because she was sure that her acquaintances would admonish her, they would criticize her as to the undesirability of interfering on behalf of a distressed animal. So if she were to interfere in this affair of the horse, who is burdened with more than an ample load, which is basically a very heavy load, they would admonish her for doing that, okay? And why is that? So such interference being none of her business. So we could say from the first 14 lines that Lady Carlotta possibly used to interfere in other people's businesses, and then when her acquaintances criticized her or admonished her a lot because she's interfering so much, she stopped doing that because, again, she would be told that that would be none of her business. Only once had she put the doctrine of non-interference into practice. So let's see when she actually did that. When one of its most eloquent exponents, okay, one of its most eloquent supporters, had been besieged, okay, for nearly 3 hours in a small and extremely uncomfortable May tree by an angry boar pig. So again, this is the satire or the irony that Saki uses. So the only time when she actually did put that doctrine or policy of not interfering into practice is when one of those acquaintances who criticized her for interfering actually got stuck in a situation where he needed someone to interfere, and that's exactly when she did not do that. Okay, she was stuck up on a tree and there was a boar. That's one of the acquaintances, of course. While Lady Carlotta, on the other side of the fence, had proceeded with the watercolor sketch she was engaged on and refused to interfere between the boar and the prisoner. It is to be feared that she lost the friendship of that ultimately rescued lady. Of course, that lady no longer remained her friend, since Lady Carlotta did not interfere to help her. On this occasion, she merely lost the train, which gave way to the first sign of impatience it had shown throughout the journey, and steamed off without her. So she'd missed that train. She bore the desertion with philosophical indifference. Okay, she dealt with the departure of the train with philosophical indifference. Basically, she tried not to care much about what just happened. So her friends and relations were thoroughly well used to the fact of her luggage arriving without her. She wired a vague, non-committal message to her destination to say that she was coming on by another train. Before she had time to think what her next move might be, she was confronted by an imposingly attired lady. So as she was waiting on the station, okay, or on the platform of the station, an imposingly attired lady confronted her or came up to her, who seemed to be taking a prolonged mental inventory of her clothes and looks. So this woman was staring at Lady Carlotta in a very meticulous, careful way. You must be Miss Hope, the governess I've come to meet. So this lady is calling Lady Carlotta Miss Hope. So she's probably mistaken as to the person she's looking for, said the apparition, the lady, in a tone that admitted of very little argument. So she wasn't even asking. She said, "You must be Miss Hope." She was almost sure of it. Very well, said Lady Carlotta. If I must, I must. So here, Lady Carlotta is like going with the flow. If you want me to be Miss Hope, I'll be Miss Hope, said Lady Carlotta to herself with dangerous meekness. I am Mrs. Quabarl. So Mrs. Quabarl is basically the imposingly attired lady. And where, pray, is your luggage? It's gone astray, said the alleged governess. Again, alleged. She's not actually the governess. She's been mistaken for someone else, and she's going on pretending that she is, in fact, Miss Hope. Falling in with the excellent rule of life that the absent are always to blame. Okay, so here, of course, she blamed the absence of her luggage. The luggage had, in point of fact, behaved with perfect correctitude. I've just telegraphed about it, she added, with a nearer approach to truth. How provoking, how annoying, said Mrs. Quabarl. These railway companies are so careless. However, my maid can lend you things for the night, and she led the way to her car. During the drive to the Quabarl mansion, Lady Carlotta was impressively introduced to the nature of the charge that had been thrust upon her. She learned that Claude and Wilfred were delicate, so those are probably the kids, okay? So she's arrived at the Quabarl mansion, and now she was introduced to the nature of the charge that she was about to be asked to do. And what charge would that be? Basically to become a maid in a house. Of course, she's not Miss Hope again, and she's been mistaken for someone else. So Claude and Wilfred were delicate, sensitive young people. That Irene, okay, another one of the kids, had the artistic temperament highly developed. Okay, so she leaned towards creative activities, and that Viola, a third of the kids, or the fourth, something or else of a mold equally commonplace. Okay, so she was also just like every other child at that time. So she was something or other else of a mold of a type equally commonplace, very usual among children of that class and type in the 20th century. I wish them not to be taught, okay, said Mrs. Quabarl, but interested in what they learn. In their history lessons, for instance, you must try to make them feel that they are being introduced to the life stories of men and women who really lived, not merely committing a mass of names and dates to memory. So Mrs. Quabarl uh, doesn't want Lady Carlotta, whom she thinks is Miss Hope, the governess, or the maid, she doesn't want her to just teach them stuff, make them memorize names and dates and so on. She wants them to be interested in what they're gonna learn. She wants Lady Carlotta to incorporate them into the lessons. French, of course, I shall expect you to talk at meal times several days in the week. So she wants her to speak French to the kids several days so that they can actually get used to the language. I shall talk French 4 days of the week and Russian in the remaining 3. Russian? My dear Miss Hope, no one in the house speaks or understands Russian. That will not embarrass me in the least, said Lady Carlotta coldly. So she's taking this acting very seriously. So Mrs. Quabarl, to use a colloquial expression, colloquial means usual, used among people, was knocked off her perch. So when you're knocked off your perch, you're surprised, you're shocked. She was one of those, she of course being Mrs. Quabarl, okay, she refers to Mrs. Quabarl. She was one of those imperfectly self-assured individuals, okay, so she's assured of herself, but in an imperfect way, who are magnificent, okay, and autocratic. Autocratic means they give orders, okay, and they govern everything, as long as they are not seriously opposed. So Mrs. Quabarl will be magnificent and she will be autocratic as long as no one seriously opposes her will. The least show of unexpected resistance, okay, if you show her the smallest amount of unexpected resistance, This goes a long way towards rendering them cowed, afraid, and apologizing. When the new governess failed to express wondering admiration, the new governess, of course, being Lady Carlotta, she did not express wondering admiration of the large, newly purchased expensive car, and slightly alluded to the superior advantages of one or two makes which had just been put on the market, newer ones. The discomfiture, okay, the state of being uncomfortable of her patroness became almost abject. So Mrs. Quabarl got really upset when she tried to get Lady Carlotta impressed with the car they have, and then Lady Carlotta said, well, there are actually two newer cars of the same make. So her feelings were those which might have animated a general of ancient warfaring days, on beholding his heaviest battle elephant ignominiously driven off the field by slingers and javelin throwers. So after Lady Carlotta did this, the point of this part right here, the last four lines, is to tell us that basically Mrs. Quabarl was extremely dejected since her attempt to get Lady Carlotta, or whom she thinks is Miss Hope, actually failed. She didn't do what she had planned on doing, and that's again impressing her new governess. So, which choice best summarizes the passage? So let's take a look at all the options we have, okay? A woman weighs the positive and negative aspects of accepting a new job. Again, not exactly. Lady Carlotta wasn't trying to check and see, okay, is this job good for me or not, okay? Someone basically mistook her for someone else, and she went along playing that role. A woman does not correct a stranger who mistakes her for someone else. Well, yeah, that's true. A woman impersonates someone else to seek revenge on an acquaintance. Now, a woman does impersonate someone else, but not to seek revenge on an acquaintance, so that makes C wrong. A woman takes an immediate dislike to her new employer. Again, not exactly. She was just playing with her. So, if there's one thing you should pick from question number one, it's the fact that you need to read the options till the end. Okay? So if someone is reading C, for example, and he reads a woman impersonates someone else, he might go like, oh, yeah, that sounds true. But if you continue reading C till the end, you will know that this is in fact not true. So in line 2, turn most nearly means. Let's take a look at line 2. Okay? So here, Lady Carlotta stepped out onto the platform of the small wayside station and took a turn or two up and down its uninteresting length. So basically, she was walking up and down the platform of the train station. So let's take a look at this. In line 2, turn most nearly means slight movement. Again, she was walking up and down. She was turning. Okay, she goes up to the end of the platform, turns around, and comes right back. Okay, so it's not a slight movement. It's not very accurate. Change in rotation. She wasn't twisting in her ground. She was actually walking around. So this is a short walk. There you go. Course correction. She wasn't correcting her course. She was actually, again, just walking around. The passage most clearly implies that other people regarded Lady Carlotta as outspoken, tactful, ambitious, or unfriendly. I would say that this is actually one of the clearest questions. So do not be confused by questions like these. The examiner will want to confuse you, but don't be. Keep it clear and simple. The passage most clearly implies that other people, how do other people think or regard Lady Carlotta? Well, they do regard her as outspoken. Again, remember, she used to interfere in other people's businesses, and then her friends would admonish or criticize her because these things are none of her business. Okay, so she would be outspoken. She does interfere in other people. Now, when you're tactful, you sort of like you care about how other people feel, and nothing of that sort was mentioned in the text. Ambitious and unfriendly, again, these attributes were not mentioned in the text, and neither did Lady Carlotta do anything in the passage to show us these attributes, okay? So which choice provides the best evidence to the answer for the answer to the previous question? Again, you have to expect a follow-up questions like these, question like number 3, they will ask you, how did you make that decision? Why did you choose outspoken? Based on which lines from the passage did you choose that answer? And for me, okay, I did use those lines where they spoke about her, about these issues interfering, being none of her business. So certain of her acquaintances were wont to give her plentiful admonition as to the undesirability of interfering on behalf of a distressed animal, such interference being none of her business. Okay, so again, she would interfere in other people's businesses. And of course we have here, option A is lines 10 to 14, and I'm quite confident of my choice. You could go through the other options, but again, with a lot of practice, you do get to a point where you know those are the lines where you got your answer. Of course, if you have extra time, go back through them, make sure you picked the right answer. Now, in certain situations where you are not sure about the previous question, you might want to have a look at these options, and then based on the information found in each one of those lines, you might make a decision regarding the previous one, okay? So that's one tactic you might want to use, but don't make it your main tactic. Now, the description of how Lady Carlotta put the doctrine of non-interference into practice mainly serves to do what? Okay, remember, when she did put the doctrine or the policy of non-interference into practice, what she actually did is that she did not interfere to help a friend who needed her help. She was stuck on a tree, she was followed by a boar pig, and Lady Carlotta saw that, and she did not intervene. Now, if you remember, when this was mentioned in the text, it was actually quite funny. And I would expect that one of these choices, and number A, would reflect on the irony of the choice or the decision she made at that point, in order to add some sort of maybe humor to the story. So let's see, foreshadow her capacity for deception. Lady Carlotta is not a deceiving kind of person, okay? I mean, she's outspoken and she's criticized by her friends for being outspoken. So she was like, okay, I'm not going to interfere at exactly the right moment when I should. So that's not deception. Illustrate that subtle cruelty in her nature. She's not cruel. Nothing in her personality shows us she's cruel. Provide a humorous insight into her character. Well, yeah, that does provide a humorous insight into her character. Again, she wanted to interfere on behalf of the distressed horse who was burdened by more than an ample load. But again, she was worried that someone would criticize her for interfering in something which is none of her business. Explain a surprising change in her behavior. Not really. Now, in line 55, charge most nearly means. Let's take a look at line 55, okay? So make sure when you have the words in context questions, you do go back to the lines where this word is used, and you make your decision based on how the word is used in context, okay? So this is something that you have to do. So during the drive to the Quabarl mansion, Lady Carlotta was impressively introduced to the nature of the charge that had been thrust upon her. Again, Lady Quabarl thought that Lady Carlotta is Miss Hope, and she just assumed she's the maid, and Lady Carlotta went with the whole thing, and of course, Miss Hope is supposed to be the governess or the maid at the house, and she was introduced to the nature of the charge, the responsibility, the job that she has to do. Okay, so I would expect that one of the choices would have a close meaning to the words responsibility or job. Okay, so in line 55, charge most nearly means A, responsibility. So that's a good one. Charge attack, not really. Fee, not really. And expense, not really. Now again, pay attention to something. The word charge itself, it does mean attack. When an army charges, they are attacking. Charge does mean fee or money you pay when you are ordering something or you are using a service. But that's not the meaning that was used in the text. The meaning that was used in the text is responsibility. So the narrator indicates that Claude, Wilfred, Irene, and Viola are what? Okay, let's take a look. If you know, those are the names of the kids and the text. And if we go back just to read really quickly about them, I remember it was right here. So she learned that Claude and Wilfred were delicate, sensitive young people. Irene was artistic, And Viola was something or else of a mold equally commonplace. She was just like everyone else in all the other children. Okay, so let's go back to the question. So similar to many of their peers, again, they did mention that they are of a mold equally commonplace among all children of that type and class. So A sounds good to me. Unusually creative and intelligent. Well, one of the kids was referred to as having the artistic temperament overly developed, okay? But not all of them are unusually creative and intelligent. That's not true, okay? They are not, again, they are not unusually creative and intelligent, just one of them is a bit creative. Hostile to the idea of a governess. We weren't introduced to any hostility on behalf of the kids towards their governess. More educated than others of their age. Again, we go back to the text. The text says they were of a mold equally commonplace among children of their type and class. So A is in fact the best answer. Now, question number 8. The narrator implies that Mrs. Quabarl favors a form of education that emphasizes. Now, again, before you answer the question, and you should do this exercise, you should try and expect or predict what the answer should be. Now, from our reading of the passage, when Mrs. Quabarl asked Lady Carlotta about the education, she told them that she wants her children to be interested. Okay, she doesn't want her just to teach them or make them memorize a set of names and a set of dates. No, she wants them to be incorporated. She wants them to be She wants her children to be interested in what they're learning. Okay, so let's take a look at the options we have. Does she want a form of education that emphasizes traditional values? Not exactly. Active engagement. She does want them to be engaged or interested. Artistic experimentation. She didn't mention this. Okay. Factual retention. She doesn't care about factual retention. She told Lady Carlotta that she doesn't want the kids to actually memorize facts like names of people and dates. No, she wants them to be engaged, and that's why B is the right answer. Now, as presented in the passage, okay, Mrs. Quabarl is best described as, so again, in the last paragraph of the passage, Mrs. Quabarl was described in great detail for us, especially when it comes to her character. Okay, what they emphasize in the last paragraph is that Mrs. Quabarl is autocratic. She will give orders. She will act as if she has everything under control and she's ordering and bossing everyone around until she is seriously opposed. If she is seriously opposed, she will be afraid to a certain extent and she might just curb the extent of her powers. So Mrs. Quabarl is best described as superficially kind but actually selfish. Again, not true. Okay, nothing of the sort was mentioned in the text. Outwardly imposing but easily defied. Well, that's true. They did say that she's autocratic until she is opposed. So she can be easily defied, but she isn't outwardly or on the surface she's imposing. So B looks good. Let's take a look at C and D. Socially successful but irrationally bitter. None of the sort was mentioned again. Naturally generous but frequently imprudent. Nothing of her generosity was mentioned either. So B really is the best answer we have. It is actually a good answer in every way, shape, and form. Now, question number 10. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Again, we did something of the like. And what I know, again, is that I did rely on these lines, okay, right here to answer this question. So here she begins. Mrs. Quabarl, to use a colloquial expression, was knocked off her perch. She was shocked. She was one of those imperfectly self-assured individuals who are magnificent and autocratic, as long as they are not seriously opposed. The least show of unexpected resistance, if you show any resistance to her, any defiance, any challenge, okay, goes a long way. That is very effective. If you show resistance and defiance, that is really effective, and that would make a person like Mrs. Quabarl cowed, and apologetic. So I am relying on these pieces of information right here. So I'm going to choose the answer that refers to those lines. And those are lines 77 to 82. This is our answer. And so that's the first passage. I mean, it really, the SAT can be as easy as I just showed. And it doesn't have to be very challenging. So thank you a lot for watching this video. Please stay tuned for some more videos. We're going to be going through the entire third practice exam on the Hermes Test Prep channel. If you like the video, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Share this material with your friends. Let's make sure as many people as possible are benefiting from this. Thank you a lot and see you soon.